welcome to the Sonical.ly podcast, where music creators educate music creators. I'm Gina.
And I'm Elmo.
Welcome to today's episode, where we have the great privilege of sitting down with John Gourley, the lead vocalist and creative force behind the Grammy Award-winning band, Portugal, the Man.
Hailing from Alaska and now based out of Portland, Oregon, John and his band have solidified their place among the most innovative and compelling bands of their generation. Since their formation in the early 2000s, Portugal the Man has embarked on an extraordinary musical journey marked by an impressive discography, including hits like Feel It Still, which not only earned him mainstream recognition, but also a Grammy for Best Pop Duo Group Performance.
In today's conversation, we'll delve into John's musical journey with the band, exploring the inspirations behind the music, the stories behind their most iconic songs, and their evolution over the years. We'll also get a glimpse into his creative process, views on the music industry today, and what the future holds for all things Portugal the Man. So without further ado, let's welcome John Gourley to the show. Woo!
Hello.
Woo.
I'm here.
We're doing it.
We're
We're
doing
really
it.
doing this. We're really doing it. It's really happening. It's
It is happening.
How are you, man?
I'm doing all right. I just took my daughter to school. She lives. We live about an hour drive
Whoa.
from her school, so I have a 2-hour drive each morning, taking her to school and then coming back home. And it's so funny. Like the first half is filled with. Right now, it's the Wish soundtrack. So we're singing the hell out of that. It's whatever like new soundtrack is happening in the kids realm. So, and then on the way back, I'm like trying to catch up on what does music sound like again.
Yeah, that's the kids' request is a request that you cannot deny on these car rides.
Yes. And I have like roles. Like she's like gives me roles. She's like, you're this person in the song. So I have to act it out while we're driving. And I'm just like, wow, this is so different than what I typically do. And
That's
it's
awesome.
Fun.
Well, we've been so excited to talk to you. In Gina and I trying to set up the interview, and we are huge fans first and foremost. We just love the songs. We love the story. We love just like everything that's out there on the internet about, the narrative of Portugal the Man. And we just kind of wanted to start from the beginning though. Did you grow up with music in your life?
Cool. Yeah. In the beginning, sheesh, we were out. So my parents are dog sled mushers, and we grew up in Alaska. So very much, we didn't really have neighbors growing up. We didn't really live in towns or anything. We had community, but it was mainly around dog mushing community. And then whatever sports we would come into town to play. So like I grew up playing like hockey and baseball, and I did gymnastics for 10 years. Growing up, we listened to so much music, but it was all pre my parents moving to Alaska. So my dad moved in 1971, and my mom shortly after that from the same town in upstate New York. And so it was all like, it was mostly 60s. So it was like Motown, like lots of Sam Cooke, lots of, the Marvelettes, obviously. I really loved all the female groups. Like it was just mainly this stuff. That's what we grew up on. We didn't really play music a lot growing up, but we listened to a ton of it.
That's so cool. One thing that I wanted to ask you about in terms of your beginning stages and your upbringing with music in your life was your dad's impact. I mean, like there's a lot of symbolism in the artwork and just like the within the narrative. You have stuff like the Woodstock ticket, the name of the band itself, and the Barn album cover. What significance did your dad play in your life in terms of your musical growth, and why was it important to share those pieces of art with the world along that path, along that journey?
I think it's just being up in Alaska. It was, how did we end up out here of all places? I mean, growing up listening to this music, I always thought it was just so cool that like I'm out in Trapper Creek in Alaska. I have no neighbor. Like our transportation is literally dog sleds and snow machines. So those are only way in and out of this cabin we lived at. And I just thought it was so cool that we were listening to music that was made in Detroit and in London and like all over the world. This music ends up on our radio, and I found that fascinating. And I mean, something funny that I talk about it a lot with friends because like sometimes people will be like, "Why do you sing so high? Like, how do you sing so high?" And so much of it is listening to my dad, who's this like, I mean, he's like from New York, but he's Alaskan as it gets. Like, he is very Alaskan. I mean, dog musher, builder, like it's just like it's in him. He is a manly man, and I would love listening to him sing like all these falsetto 60s songs. Like he would sing falsetto in the car. I just thought it was so cool. Like this dude is showing up and singing this like these really high parts. He was always just fascinating to me, and he just is. Like he's a really funny dude with lots of stories about coming up to Alaska and living in his like trapper's cabin, which basically like he had built a cabin that you could just you crawl in and you sleep in it, and then all day you're like hunting or doing something. Like you're always doing something when you're out in the bush in Alaska. And he would just crawl into this cabin and sleep at night. He and my mom both, though. I mean, my mom was huge influence too. Like they're both very strong people. My mom is like firefighter, EMT, dive rescue, works at the native hospital up in Eklutna in Alaska. She's sick. Like, it's a pretty hardcore family.
That's so awesome. I'm kind of imagining Alaska to be like growing up there to be similar to growing up in Canada a little bit in a way. Like we're here in Vancouver, and grew up in the suburbs, and we didn't have dog sledding, but we had I don't know what else we have. We fished, we just hiked in the mountains, and yeah, camping and that kind of
Oh, totally.
thing.
There's
So
there's Canada crossover with Alaska. That's what we always say. Like Alaskans are always like, "Well, we got Canada." Like it feels so detached from the lower 48. Like all of this
yeah,
down here, like we didn't even know what that was. So Canada was always close to us. We actually like traveled over quite a bit to like Whitehorse and Dawson City, and I mean just northern Canada. Like we were up there quite a bit with Yukon Quest, just traveling the Yukon.
that's so cool. Growing up in Alaska and listening to all this music that your parents were playing in the house, I'm wondering how you discovered the process of creating music.
Wow, I so this is something I never really get to talk about a whole lot, but I didn't have access to like a lot of the things that I started to hear in music. Like I started to hear I remember playing hockey. I started to hear things like Nirvana and I mean Michael Jackson, things like this. Yeah, Oasis was a big one because I like that was oh my God, I grew up on the Beatles, and I honestly thought the greatest music had been created. Like I thought it was all done. Like it had already been made, and then I heard Oasis, and I went, oh my God, you can still make music today. You just rip off the Beatles, and, like riff on that. And that's, I mean, genuinely what music should be. I mean, music should be like taking your influences and letting it out. I mean, I think that's the coolest thing, the coolest advice I ever got from somebody, and the greatest advice was that thing that you love, just try and do it. Like you are an individual, you are a creative person. Like it's always going to sound like you. Trust me, you're never gonna be John Lennon. Was kind of the greatest advice. Like yeah, you can take these things, and the whole point is to take these chords and tell your story over it.
So was it kind of like starting off in music classes and then finding keyboards and just kind of experimenting with it and then like, whoa, this I can actually create my own music
Oh,
that's my own as opposed to listening to the Marvelettes or Sam Cooke. What was that what was that experience like? That initial like, whoa, this is mind blowing.
yeah, initially it was okay. So like my music creation, I was terrible in music classes. I I'm like an introvert. I am a natural introvert. Like when I end up in rooms like that where me making a sound with this trumpet is gonna bring attention to me, like I want out, you know. So I didn't really do well in music classes, but I would sit at home. The thing I would do a lot is I would sit down with songs, and my mom had this boombox with a like a record function over here, and you know you could play and record on these. So I would take songs that I liked, where maybe I don't like one of the parts, and I would edit out like the parts, or like I would change the structure of songs. I would edit songs together, which is something that we do a lot in our music is like transitions between songs. Like we find things that flow into the next track. And I would do that a lot, like making little mixtapes without even knowing what I was doing. I was just doing it because that naturally felt like something I wanted to hear. And it was really like, it was super fun. Like getting into this and realizing that idea doesn't work. You know, that middle eight is there for a reason. Like it gives you a breather in the song. Like you can't have all the sugar the whole time.
Totally. Yeah, I found that discovery with the old boom boxes, and it's kind of like early day hip hop sampling, and a lot of like old like kind of like the pioneer producers really discovered music in that way. So that's super cool that you have that part of your sort of experience as well.
Yeah, it was that was always super fun to me. It is so basic. I wish I had something. It's probably good that I learned on something that like it was so time consuming and just trying to get like even recording beats, like record that
Yeah.
like break beat just because I want to sit down. I want to hit the one note on the piano that I know how to hit. I don't know chords, so I'm just playing one note at a time over it. It would take so long to get a consistent beat long
Yeah.
enough that I could jam to.
That's awesome. We're very curious to now that you have gone from those early days of just early influences in your house to discovering the process of creating music, and now fast forwarding now after all this time, you went on the road, you released a number of albums, Grammy awards. You're in the place where so many creators are looking at you as somebody to admire. But the question is, what were some of the hardest moments in your journey to becoming a renowned artist songwriter, and how did you overcome those hardships?
For me personally, like the hardships, I think the scariest moments were honestly the most exciting to me. It's just the idea that I mean I see this with a lot of people. You really have to get out and just do it. This band started because I learned how to screen print T-shirts, and in learning how to screen print T-shirts, and people wanted these designs and these shirts, like uh, I almost paired the music with that on the back end. It was like we could travel around and we could sell these T-shirts. If we can sell these T-shirts, we can make enough gas money to get to the next town. It, I guess it's a lot like my parents going up to Alaska because you're kind of going into this unknown place. I found those moments to be exciting, not knowing if we're going to have enough money to get food today, not knowing if we're going to have gas money. It really makes you love that you're out there making your art and traveling around and doing it. I think the scariest thing for people that I've seen is it was really difficult finding people who were down to just jump in the van and say, yeah, you know what? Like college, work, like I have to make money, right? And I think if you're okay sleeping on floors and sleeping in the van, I mean, we slept in parking lots often. Like at the beginning of this band, we were, man, we would eat for a dollar a day. I mean, we would like the whole band. We had a 5 pound bag of rice, and I tell this story a lot, but we had a rice cooker, 5 pound bag of rice, and we would spend a dollar on vegetables, and it would just be a bag of frozen vegetables that we'd throw into the rice cooker, and it was just out of the love of traveling and seeing the world and being around music. I mean, really, like that's part of suffering for your art, I suppose. We just never thought it was felt it was suffering. We're just like, this is cool. This is like camping, you know. We're just camping every day.
Was there any moment where any inkling when things did get tough? When you're kind of like, I think this is going to be my last bowl of rice. Like I don't think I can eat another bowl. Did you ever think about turning back or no?
I never did, but I definitely I played with a lot of people who did. I mean, this a lot of people have played in this band and
Yeah.
have come in and out, and it is. I think it's probably difficult. A lot of my learning has been around like how do you manage this and like how do you work through these moments and how do you instill like faith in everybody else that like we can do this. I've always been just a big believer in self. Like believe in yourself.
Mm,
If this is meant to be, like that's why you pursue it. Like you shouldn't be afraid of something that you know is going to happen.
mm.
It does take a lot of introspection though, which is I don't think is the most common trait, but it's something to work on. Like really looking at yourself, like look in the mirror and go, but really, really, what do we think about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Wikipedia classifies the genre of Portugal the Man as alternative rock, psychedelic rock, experimental rock on one side, and then to the other side, there's dance and electronic. This is a two-part question. Was the original concept of the band to fit into one of these rock genre boxes? And then the second part of it is, was there a pivotal moment when you decided that innovative sonic experimentation was necessary for growth?
One of the most exciting things about playing music is there are so many different directions you can take it. The goal in the beginning of this band was always like let's make a different record. And I that's all I want to do. I want to make different albums. Like why would you I just watched it like in watching these bands and I this is just the way I look at it. Like I see Jet make a record. I see the Strokes make records. The Strokes like they obviously like expanded on it and like grew to this like they went so many different directions with all of it. But I watched like rock bands make records and thought how difficult to like follow up with something that's so specifically a sound and a genre and your first time out the gate, like you kind of write the songs as good as they can be written. So I really think, I mean, you see it in pop music today. I mean, that sushi restaurant, Harry Styles track, like I hear that and I'm like, there is no way. Like, how is this on the radio? And people are just open to that. Like, I love some like linear songwriting. Like, I love songwriting that grows and I love Pink Floyd. I love Yes. I love bands that just like they take you on a journey. Timbaland did that really great with his beat writing. Like I mean
Mm-hmm.
his beat making and his songwriting like beat switches up at the end of the track and you just go, I have no idea why that happened, but I love it. I like hearing that. Like that cannot happen in a structured world. That cannot happen with like the rules of songwriting. Hey, rule number one, like the second verse same as the first, or third verse same as the first, like whatever those rules are to it. And I just where music is at today, like this whole like feature culture where there's like different features on everything. Rhythm changes, the voice changes, like tone changes. You can change so many things that, I mean, personally, I'm almost offended that we get stuck in an alternative rock world. You know, like that is not where I would ever want to live. I want to live in a world that's like free and open. You can blanket it with punk, you can blanket it with rock, you can do that sort of thing, but I want to be going somewhere.
Yeah, I found, you know, knowing your music and seeing those uh, genre definitions that were written out for the band, they kind of took me back a little bit, and um, yeah, I just had this feeling that it didn't really make sense. You know, whoever creates these boxes, I guess, creates them because the boxes make them feel comfortable. But I think the awesome thing about Portugal and Man is that I don't get the sense that you guys ever try to live within that. It's just sort of is what it is in the moment of creation, and that's what it will be.
Yeah, I think it's the best way to approach anything. Like whatever comes out, like let it happen. I mean, there are so many. We have so much unreleased music. It is ridiculous. I mean, there's some like really wild stuff we made with Mac Miller, with Mike D. I mean, there's just like piles of this stuff that like it just. I feel like all this stuff just needed to be honest in the moment and be what be what you want it to be. It does become really difficult when people start putting those genres on you. Like they give you these like yeah, they give you that box. And let's be honest, like it is so we can like figure out the demographic and know who we're selling music to. That's the thing that I see the most when I walk into rooms is just the confusion. Well, but this is an alternative band. Like I kind of need to know who I'm selling it to. And you look at like the whole world and like I mean, just even scrolling social media and like you're kind of like flipping through things and flipping through videos. I see everything. Why would I make one type of music and why would you sell music to one person?
Mm.
I mean, really, and I mean, just like to jump off of that, like this is just people sitting in front of cameras making stuff that they feel like making in the moment.
Mm.
So
So I
yeah, honesty is key, and just being true to like who you are in that moment, and following whatever weird instrument, like let it take you somewhere.
yeah, and these are all choices, right? Like personal, tasteful choices that lead you down a path. One of the I think really impressive choices to me is your guys' choice of producers to work with. John Hill, Jeff Bhasker, Danger Mouse. These are the types of producers that all have a sort of Rick Rubin-esque quality to them, where they can flawlessly contribute their talents to like the rawest hip hop song, to multiple genres of music like rock, metal, soul, folk, funk. Um, was what you just sort of described the reason why you chose to work with them, and why it was important for you to work with producers like that?
Wow, I don't think I've ever picked a producer based on what they've done necessarily. Like it's always like, I mean, we're a weird band. We like end up in rooms with people. I guess Basker would probably be the first one that I was like, as when I heard what he did with Kanye, like, I mean, I'm just gonna give my opinion on this. That's what opened up Kanye. Like that's what
Mm,
where he became an artist. You know, I mean, he was always an artist. Like it, but it got he found somebody's hands that could take him on the journey that he had in
mm,
his head. And Basker is just such an incredible player. It's so fun to play with. I like people who will challenge you. I like people that I mean, sitting down with Danger Mouse, he has such great taste. I mean, just I. I love that you walk into a room with Danger Mouse and you go, I really want to make something that he likes because he's got great taste. And, you know, it's just going to be fun. And like, I love that he will, if I'm stumped, if I'm sitting at the keyboard and I'm going, not quite it, not quite it. I love it. He'll stand up and be like, I think I got something, you know, and like it's there until you beat it. I mean, I guess that's all the sports I played growing up too. Like, I like a competitive edge in the studio. I like going in with John Hill and having a like him say like it's that's not quite it. Like, why don't we pull out these pedals and like find a cool sound that leads you there. That's really what music creation for me personally is, that collaboration. And I want to be in rooms with people who want to push you and collaborate and have like a point too, you know.
What are some of the points that, because you mentioned Bhasker, Jeff Bhasker, the first time that I saw his credit was on the Games documentary album, and I'm like, who is this guy, right? And I'm just thinking he's like the Game Bhasker. I don't know, like I wanted a face to the name, and then I was watching these Vlad TV interviews where he's describing how he came up with the Runaway riff. That was insane to me, because it just, the way he explained it was the beauty of minimalism was the whole point of that. Um, and that interview, I learned something. What was something that you learned from working with him?
It's so going into rooms with people like that. He's made such like, I mean, influential music. It's so been so influential on me personally. I'm like kind of in awe of this person. You go in there with him and you kind of realize that he's just kind of playing off the top of his head, and he's really like he taught me how to focus my like what I'm trying to say. I mean, the record we made together, the album we made together, is like the most cohesive. Like it's the closest thing to a concept album we've ever made. It has a through line. He really pushed me on those things, but his understanding of pocket, of just feel in general, like being around somebody who can do this. I've only seen it a handful of times, and I don't care. Tell me you can do this, you can't. Like you cannot do it. Like at like Bhasker level. Oh, you're a little early with that vocal. It's actually here, and he does it, and you hear it, and you're like, yeah, that's it. It's like perfectly
Mm,
it, and it's like insignificant. Like it is nothing. Like there's. I mean, if you looked at it on a grid, it'd be slightly later than what I just did. But he hears that stuff. I mean, that's like some high level, like his brain's just moving faster than yours.
yeah,
And he could always hear that stuff. I mean, there were points working with him where just understanding where the notes should be and like where they fit within the music. I mean, he's an amazing singer too. I don't know if you've heard his like vocals. Dude, if you ever get the chance and you can hear like his demos that he wrote for Beyonce and the
yeah.
demos that he made, he sings that stuff better. He straight
Wow.
up sings it better than the performers because of that thing, like that feel. Like he just lands everything. He's always sticking it. Like I look at songwriting as if you're skateboarding or snowboarding. You're like sticking the landing, and it's like perfect transitions. Jeff is full of those. I watched him get out of bed and deliver like I was playing I was playing this song, and it was kind of a weirder progression, not something that's like super intuitive to me, like something where I would have to sit down and be like craft a melody. Jeff legit walks out of bed. He's in like this vocal, by the way, is like one of my vocals. Like it is like a super high falsetto. Uh, it's kind of an odd chord progression. He gets out. He's still in his pajama pants, kind of clearing his throat. He's like, "Do you have a melody for this?" I'm like, "No, I have like a few lyrics." And I give him a few lyrics, and he's like, "Oh, cool, cool. Do you mind if I try something?" And he sits down and like clears his throat and he just takes the mic and start to finish, just he's hearing the notes before they're happening. He doesn't know this song. He doesn't know the chord progression, but perfectly delivers this like really great sketch of like here's an entire song start to finish, and he just kind of felt it out. Like he is the greatest musician I've ever been around. I've never seen anybody do what he does. I've seen good singers.
Yeah.
I've seen incredible vocalists. I've seen incredible beat makers. I've been around all these people, but yeah, you're in a room with Bhasker, and there's something really special.
When you guys first met, there must have been some feeling out process. Um, and these things, these revelations that you talk about right now are things that you have learned by being with him in multiple sessions and that type of thing. But upon meeting, was there a little bit of like push and pull a little bit until he did something that made you be like, holy shit, this guy's legit? Or you already knew that going in?
I kind of knew he was great. Like I knew he
Yeah.
was like there was like extreme greatness there.
Hmm.
But walking in, it was pretty funny because we had it when like being on a major label following a hit like that. We so they put you in like writing sessions, and I will say like an important side note about writing sessions is unless you're just writing for something, like you can go in and I feel like you can just like write for something and just see what it is. If you're writing specifically for somebody, like you have to come in prepared and kind of just know that like I would say I love all the writers that I've ever stepped in rooms with. That's not true actually. There are a few that I don't. I probably won't go in rooms again with, but I love all of them in different ways. But I did notice like, man, it's a lot of wasted time walking into rooms if everybody is not on the same page and like has some sort of direction. I do believe in that, and that's something that Jeff had when I walked into a room with him. And the funniest part of that direction was you go in for writing sessions. So like I'm meeting all these producers. Like, who are you going to work with? I don't know. I just want to meet Bhasker. So I'm going through all these steps. I'm doing the whole thing. I'm going to all the producers you want me to go to. Really, my end goal is Bhasker anyway. So like, let me just get there. So I'm going in and we're writing with every producer that wants to work with us, which again, like to talk about like what happens to those songs after you write them if they don't come out. Like it's like I believe in creative energy and I believe in this like being this is part of me. So like leaving that stuff in sessions unnecessarily, I don't personally subscribe to that. It's just not
Hmm.
what I'm there for. But I show up at Jeff's house. It's me, Kyle, and Zach, and we have all our instruments because these are all writing sessions. We pull up, and Jeff opens the door. And he's like, "What's this? What are these?" And I'm like, "Oh, I thought we'd write together." And he's like, "No, no, we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk and see if we want to make a record together." And it was so refreshing because that's what you need. I mean,
Yeah.
again, like you can write great songs in rooms with people, but if it's for something specific, like I would hope you know it. Like I would hope you know what you're getting into. And Jeff perfectly presented that to us, and that's something I really did learn from him is yeah, get to know each other. I mean, to be fair, like Danger Mouse too, like you don't walk into a studio with Danger Mouse and like he just don't just give him money and make record. Like that's not how this works. Like
Yeah.
you sit down and talk.
Mhm.
And those are two of the people that I've worked with that I appreciated that so much, and I appreciate their like honesty, their candor around like songwriting. Like I just don't think that's that tight. It's
Yeah.
not that great. It's that's energy that I like to be around. I like to find it
Nice.
together.
So are those initial conversations like do you dive right into the music or you guys talk about like, food and just like general interests?
It's pretty general,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, that's usually how that's how I meet people. I mean, people always think it's like crazy how many like if you go through our Rolodex, like we've been around a lot of like really great people, and none of it started with like music. Like we like the same food. I mean, Mac Miller, like being friends with Malcolm was like I didn't even know like anything about him. Like this was like pretty early on. So like honestly, like his energy, like when I was around him, I was like, oh my God, as an introvert, like this dude is like crazy, like wild extrovert energy and like super charismatic. But the more I was around him, like I didn't think I was gonna hang out around him at all or like even really see him again. But one day, like we were in this spot and Malcolm's there and he has a guitar in his hands and he comes up to me and starts playing Oasis. He's like, "You like this?"
Nice.
I was
Yeah.
like, "I like this," and it started this like whole friendship around music and finding things that we love together. But I mean, where it started was just kind of being around each other and
Mm.
just kind of being in social situations.
Yeah. I guess as an introvert meeting a extrovert, the initial reaction is kind of like to pull back, right? But then it's funny how that common thread in that relationship was an Oasis song. It was like a music that created like this bridge. Um, do you find that pattern comes up a lot with people you meet as an introvert?
If, music, like
Yeah,
does music come up a lot?
is music often the bridge between different personality types within relation friendships and stuff with you?
It can be.
Yeah.
I you know. I'm sorry, I'm like full of tangents. I never listened to Radiohead because this wrestler kid he was like always bullying me on the bus, like
Yeah.
the school bus to school. Like he would always bully me, and one day he was like you should listen to Radiohead. This album is the band's. You should listen to this. And I remember when he showed me that, and I was like, I will never listen to the bands. I will never listen to Radiohead. And it took me a long time. It wasn't until in Rainbows that I heard Radiohead and was like, oh, this is good. This is a good band. Cool.
Did you reach out to him on Facebook and be like, "You're right, you're right"?
That's funny. I should do that. Like, I could do that.
um, so you talked about this feeling of leaving yourself in the studio and being in the room with people uh, that inspire you and don't inspire you. In a past interview, the genesis for "Feel It Still" was sort of, in a way, you tell the story about an uninspired session that you walked out of, picking up a bass, riffing on a bass line that ended up being the starting point of what Feel It Still became. Can you walk us through the creation of the other significant layers of that song?
Yeah, definitely. So the song came about. Um, it had actually been around for a long time. I actually had a friend who I worked with like 2011, 2012 come up to me and say, I remember when you showed me that. Like, and I mean, that song came out 2017. So I had it for a long time. It had definitely been sitting there, but it was just like a bass line, and it was like a starter lyric, and it was because it was written around like after having my daughter. So we have Frances, and it was just it's so wild being like in what I consider to be like a punk band, like it's just ethos wise, like it's like a punk band, rebel just for kicks. Like we just kind of like we troll people and have fun, and but I have to take care of this kid, like have to. Like I'd love to take care of this kid. it's just a part of me now. And like, how do you do these two things at the same time? I had initially stepped out of a mixing session. So we're mixing one of the songs, and it's just not what I was like feeling. Like I didn't really want to work on that. Like I wanted to make this like lively record that reminded me of Woodstock. That was like a really important part of this journey. And I had this bass line, and I'd stepped into a side room, and my buddy Asa Taccone from Electric Guest is in there. He's working on his own stuff, and he just hears me playing the bass line. He said, "Yo, Jay, can I record this?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, let's do it." Started playing the bass line. "Yo, Jay, you got another part?" "Yep, I got another part. It's music." So here's another part for the middle eight, and the whole thing came together so quickly. I mean, it really like I mean, kudos to Asa. Like Asa he's just so fun. Like he's like a drama school kid, and he's just sitting back there. Like he takes this bass down. He's like, you got verse lyrics, like cool. Like here's this, and we just kind of like put these things together. And Asa, the initial beat is Asa pounding on the desk. So he's just hitting the desk, grabs a mic, he does these like little yips and whoops that are in the song. And I, I mean I love this stuff again around honesty. Like Asa came over to me, and at the bridge, the middle eight in the song, I would call it, Asa comes over and he's like, you got a bridge lyric? You got a bridge lyric? And he's trying to like hype me up and get me excited about it. And he starts doing, is it coming? Is it coming? Like waiting for me to write a lyric. And I'm listening to him, and I'm just like, this is so like, I'm not saying anything because it's so like a little bit louder now, a little bit softer now. Like it's Isley Brothers. Like that's what I was hearing him do. But it's all these like happy accidents, like all these things are happening, and it's just allowing space for that to happen. I mean, I could have stopped him and been like, Asa, I'm an introvert, and this is really weird having you in my face saying, is it coming? But it's so like you could hear it kind of manifesting itself. But it's just like there's something happening in this room right now. And yeah, he grabs the mic and he does this like horse laugh thing that's in the at the end of the third verse. And just all of it was just we were just playing around. Again, like some of the greatest music is made when you're just playing around. Song 2, Blur. Like have fun. Like let it be a warm-up song for practice, get my voice going. MGMT, like their first album, like they talk about that whole thing being a joke, and they were just like making fun of like the dance music scene. Well, it's a pretty good joke. It's one of
Yeah,
the greatest albums of all time, and it will
100%.
always live there. Having fun with music and not belaboring it, like not like don't think too hard. It's really easy to think too hard. And I mean, you can make great music too that if you think too hard on it, it just doesn't come out. And I mean, that'll lead you to people like Bhasker, where that like free
Mm.
flow, straight out of bed. That's my takeaway was you get up and get out of bed, you just sing the song start to finish, be like, there's something in there.
Yeah, the fascinating thing for me is that in that moment where he's like, is it coming? Is it coming? Somehow you pulled from going back to your early years of listening to the Marvelettes, and that was the thing that came out. Can you explain sort of that, how that happened and what the phenomenon there was?
Well, it's just allowing myself to sing the melodies that are in me. Is sing the melodies that you grew up with, and not the I mean, some of the things that happen in like when you start talking to like musicologists, I actually don't believe it should work this way. Honestly, like yeah, that's like song origins for sure. It's not Mr. Postman. You know, like when you hear them back to back now, especially now, like you listen to it and you're like, those are different songs. And interpolation is there's all sorts of precedent for like what that can be and what that should be. But I don't like the idea of like stopping yourself because it could be something else. Like chase it because that it's telling you something. You know, that's something inside of you. Like you should be channeling these things that are coming in into your head, like channel them into these recordings. And if you need to change something after the fact, sure. But I really think like allowing things to flow. And I mean, this is like leading me to something around like my early bands and just don't ever get in your own way. It's really easy to get in your own way, and it's really easy to sit back and say things like, "You know, that's the Strokes, right? You know, that's this." It's like, yeah. Well, what were the Strokes listening to? I bet they could tell you. I bet Julian could tell you exactly where that song comes from. And you know what? It's probably the same progression and pretty close melody, but it's Julian. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like be that. Like really like put your flavor on it, like put your flavor in everything and like just be like, this is who I am. And that's it's kind of my favorite part about that song is that song is an SM7 and I'm sitting on the floor and I'm really trying to be kind of quiet and I'm singing into this and I love that it made it onto the record. It's just like me sitting on a floor quietly singing like can't keep my eyes on myself. And it's so soft. Like the delivery is like you can't even do it live because it's so soft. Um, but that's every aspect of that song is perfect for that song because it just is what it was. You know, like that's what it is. Like I sang it that soft, and I think if I tried to belt it out, it would be a different track.
Yeah. Did anybody come at you afterwards and say, you know, obviously there's people that put out the record and um, they would they might not understand what that is of being in the moment, being at one with these inspirational sort of um, outlets and hear the final piece of music and be like, well, you know, I think we might have to do something with this um, in order to be able to put it on the record. Like we might have to change out this note or something like that, where you were like, no, actually we don't, because this is what it's going to be. And then there's they might come back to you, oh well, we that means we have to show it to their state and get it approved and blah blah blah, blah. Yeah, like all that stuff. Like did that happen or no?
It did happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, like honestly, it's just not really how if this is not good for music.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that like it is not good for music when you get into the minutia. Like, oh, this is too similar in this way, or like especially the vibe conversation. Like, I don't like those conversations. I do think it's like it's shady as hell when artists intentionally do it, and they do it a lot. But I think when you're like letting things kind of happen, like there was no part of that that was like, this is a hit because it's that. I mean, it's just not. I mean, there are so many factors in those things working that are not. So, I mean, do you know? Does anybody know what we look like or who sings that song? No, I don't know who the woman who sings "Feel It" Still is. Like I've seen the conversation so many times. Like there was no relying on celebrities, so like you have to like consider like all these factors in it, like the way it's sung. But yeah, if people did, like people were like, if you change one note here, you'll own it completely.
Mm.
And I was like, again, like I think that like honesty in the moment, and I think honoring the folks around us, like honoring the origins of this stuff. Like, I'm not here to like take from people, but I do think there is like a level of like, when I look back at it, especially now, um, it's so not that, and it is like like what I was saying about Julian Casablancas, like, and the Strokes, like, yeah, they could probably tell you exactly where it came from, exactly what it is, and you'd go back and listen to it and be like, yeah, that, I guess that is it. It's not it, that's the Strokes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where we all kind of like add our little bits to it. It is wild. Like, so that was not even supposed to be the song off that album. Like, that was
Mm-hmm.
like fifth choice for everybody, and it went to this like boring marketing meeting where they play all the songs, and everybody picked that song. And I think so many folks were so confused. But credit to like Craig Hellman and Julie Greenwald. Like, they knew what that was, and I will value them forever. Like, I will love those fools forever for knowing what it was.
So awesome. The album Chris Black Changed My Life has many lyrical references to faith, mortality, and the afterlife. Examples of this are found in the song Dummy, where the lyrics read, "Everyone I know is running from the afterlife. 5, 6, 7, 8. I pray the Lord my soul to take." Can you elaborate and help us understand the meaning and inspiration behind these lyrics?
Yeah, it is about mortality. I mean, if you look at the album, if you break it down into, I actually saw somebody do this. It's like, it really messes me up when, if you were gone to like songmeanings.com or like any of those places.
I go to whosampledit.com.
Yeah, that's a good one
That's because
too.
I make hip hop.
Yeah, I
So,
love
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I've had people break down the album and actually like see what it is. Like, it. So the first half is about community and these people around us, and it's dealing a lot with loss. I mean, we lost our friend Chris Black, he was like our MC. I don't. Everybody call him like a hype man. I guess he was like, he's just our homie who, like, he's funny as hell, and like, he's on stage with you, and dude, I loved looking over at this person who's like absolute extrovert, charismatic. He took all of that weight off of me to be like anything but John, who likes playing guitar and making music. Chris would be out on stage and he would do the funniest stuff. He would dab and like get our audience to dab back way late on dabbing.
Way
And
late on it.
yeah,
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 I was wondering
and he would turn to me and he'd be like, "That's your audience. That's your audience."
that.
And we would just like laugh about this stuff. He is so funny, and losing him was really difficult for our crew. Like, it really, like, it fractured our whole, like, we had this whole creative group, and we had all come up together, directors, cinematographers, like creative directors, and I, it was really hard watching that friend group break. And that's what the whole first half of the album is dealing with. Like, we have all this fun. Like, we should be like, yeah, we should all be out like doing our thing and being together and not thinking about this. Like, that Grim Generation is about this too. Like, it's
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, like, there's a lot going on in the world, but we should still be like, keep doing this and like keep making art and keep having fun. And the second half is dealing with that as like an individual. I mean, it really crosses over in times of fantasy to, I mean, we had just learned about, Zoe and I had just gotten a diagnosis for our daughter who's going through a lot. And we had written this song, Times of Fantasy. And I had the lyrics together. Sean Leon came and sang on it, with Jeff. And Frances sings on it. Our daughter Frances sings on it too. And that's kind of like the signifier for like second half of the album being the individual experience in dealing with loss and like kind of like the pressures of life and looking out at like what this could all be. It comes together with anxiety, but anxiety is
Mhm.
like a pretty heavy track for me personally, creatively, because
Yeah.
I mean it's pretty on its face. Like it is what it is. Like you can hear what the song is about pretty clearly, but it does bring it back together with community and Paul Williams talking to me in the studio. I mean, if
Mm.
you haven't heard that song, like my my favorite thing about it is that Paul Williams is there with me in the studio. Like we're working on lyrics. He's just like a generational songwriter. Like he's written some of the greatest songs of all time, written with the greatest songwriters of all time, for sure. And we're sitting in the studio. We're just working on lyrics. I love writing with people like that, people that I really look up to. And I love the generational, like he's like a father figure to me
Mm.
too. And he we're talking about the song and he's like, what is it about? So what's it about? And I'm like, oh, it's like fears, it's like anxieties, like all this like anxiety like we feel and anxiety that I feel and all this stuff with Francis, these things that we're feeling around Francis. And I'm explaining it to him and he just starts talking to me about anxiety and how it
Mm.
feels like a forest fire coming over the mountain and you're
Wow.
looking at it and it's biblical, it's cinematic.
Yeah.
And he's talking about if you get too caught up in that and like watching it burn, like it will consume you. And
Mm.
it's kind of it's a really perfect ending to that album. But he really is just talking to me about anxiety. I was sitting there in the studio, like I'm holding the mic for him. I'm just like, oh my God, this is the heaviest shit. Like, who
Yeah.
talks like this? First of all, like,
Yeah.
this is your vocabulary. Like, this is the way your brain works. But yeah, it's everything. It's just life. That's what life is. And there should be joy and there should be everything. Like, you can't feel joy without some pain
Yeah.
and really understand what happiness is.
So was that session kind of a turning point for you in terms of how you've processed all of these emotions and experiences that were pretty tough? The talk with Paul, was it sort of coming out of that session, looking at things differently, switching your focus on, I guess, more positive aspects of things happening at the time?
Yeah, I guess there's always a little bit of cynicism in me. There always will be. Um, yeah, I mean, it helped me get through a lot of these feelings. I mean, I left that album like working with Bhasker and Paul, and it's a lot of stuff that Bhasker actually said to me like when we first started. It's like, oh, I want to tell like your story. Like, I want to tell a story about like what's it like growing up in Alaska and like looking out at this stuff. And Alaska is very community focused. I mean, where I grew up, very community focused. It's rural Alaska. It's it's different than city life. It just is. Like you help people out of the ditch. Like you see somebody like slide off the road, like you help them. Um, it doesn't matter like what your political beliefs are, like anything. Like we're just there together. And it really helped during a time when it felt like very divided out in the world. Help me deal with a lot of personal things. But yeah, it was musically and songwriting and lyrically, it's it was our most cohesive album, and
Hmm.
feel like I needed to do that to be able to make the next thing, which I
Mm.
really need to get back to sort of like more linear songwriting, where it's just let's go on a journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rush.
Looking. Yeah. With sprinkles of Wish and the Disney car ride songs that are going along.
Yeah, totally. It's so crazy how like tight to the grid everything is in those songs. And I hear it, I was just like, oh my God. Like I need to get into a session and just be like, let's move all these things like slightly
Yeah.
off of each other because it is so tight.
They got the quantum quantizer on there.
It is so tight.
um, you mentioned the diagnosis for Francis, and I actually wanted to ask you this in sort of talking about the Francis Change My Life fundraise. Was it a long road where they kind of thought it was other things, and then finally they figured out that it was what it was?
Yeah, I mean, it took a long time. I mean, genetics has genetic testing, like it's all come so far. I mean, especially over the last like 5 years, 10 years. Um, it just wasn't accessible to us. So I guess we noticed something was different when I guess around like 3 years old is when we started to notice that like, oh, she's not really keeping up with these kids. We started her in like speech programs. I mean, we always figured it was probably like autism spectrum stuff. So, which it is, but it's so many more things. There's a genetic component to it. It wasn't until about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, that she was with one of our like it was she was with her sitter, and like we were out playing music, and she says, "Hey, I think Francis is having seizures." And she had like fallen down a couple times, and we had just never seen that. So we come back, and man, Zoe just like really, she just sat down just all day long with Francis and just kept her phone on recording. And just like a week of just all day long, and we started to catch these, like her eyes are fluttering, she zones out, and it gradually got like to the point where I mean, she must have been having 100 a day seizures. And I will tell you how scary it is. I mean, like it's so scary. Like you go in, and even when we got the diagnosis, the thing that they said to us, man, like we take her and they go, oh, so like we should probably do genetic testing with epilepsy happening, just see if there's anything there. And they come back with DHDDS, and there are 6 kids in the world with this, 6 people in the world with this, and we don't really know anything about it. So come back in 5 years and tell us how she's doing,
Oh
and kind of
man.
like tell us what's happened. And just that feeling. I mean, I can hear it in times of fantasy because we wrote that like that. It was like within those like few days, like reading the diagnosis, and it was just so heavy. It was like it like just flipped our entire world, and we're like reading about this and not good. I mean, it's pretty scary. Like looking at all this stuff and saying, "Yeah, I am seeing Francis do a lot of these things." I see her dealing with this stuff. Like it moves kind of quick, but Zoe and I just kind of dug in on it and said, you know what, we're not going to um, just sit back and wait and see what this thing does. Like we reached out to some really good friends, Andrew Luffman, Kim Luffman, helped us connect with some folks. Like we connected with some really great doctors at Columbia, Dr. Wendy Chung, who's one of the leading like researchers like on this stuff. Like she took Francis on and has since taken on another family as well with DHDDS. We actually ran into a family with 2 kids who have DHDDS.
Wow.
It's the same group, but it's just different variations of it, different mutations. But it's been pretty wild ride, and like seeing all of the stuff. Like a lot of people want to talk about like the U.S. like healthcare system, and like wow, it's so expensive. Like it's the healthcare system. It's but no, it's like actually like researching and developing a drug for a really specific disease that could. I mean, the real potential in this is that we have a platform like we want to help Francis. You know, we want to help these kids. There's crossover with like Alzheimer's and dementia and movement disorders. So, I mean, that's like our whole goal in life is like, how do we push this science forward and how do we get it there? Because what you'll see, like, if we can solve this, like, they'll see, like, oh, hey, there's crossover. This is what's happening a lot with like drug repurposing. They're going, oh, this is helping right here. So where do these meet up? Where do these two different diseases meet up? Like two
Mm.
different mutations. It's been pretty fascinating digging in on all of it, but difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, what is the current state of the Francis Change My Life fundraise? Um, where can people sort of learn more about it and um, get more get more information and contribute to the cause?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's just all about fundraising. So I mean, it's just like whatever anybody could give. Like we're gonna obviously like go to like bigger donors, but like it does really all of these things. Like it takes a community. It's like
Mm-hmm.
community, like crowdsourced. Like everything is like is this is all about community, and this is all I've grown up with. Like it's what it is about. Like it doesn't matter how much you can give. Like it's just about like contributing to this greater cause and this greater goal of like helping people in this world. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's generally like the way I look at this stuff is it's just helping people. It's francischangemylife.com is where you can find like all the information about Frances. Um, you'll see like I'm sure there's videos of her dancing on there, which are just kind of ridiculous and funny for me because I get up every morning and we listen to Weird Al, and she dances and she practices her dance moves in the bathroom every morning. I can hear her doing that. Um, it's just really made I think looking out and seeing these places in the world, these people in the world that need a little bit more than us, you
Yeah,
know, and I would say I would argue we all kind of need a little like love and care.
I agree.
I travel around and I actually ended up at a school in Arizona
Mm-hmm.
that is much like the school Francis goes to, and it's really amazing. There's like 200 kids. It's publicly funded, and they teach kids like life skills along with schooling. So it's like
Yeah.
teach them how to do laundry and help out your parents and like how to deal with money. Like it's things
Yeah.
we should all learn this stuff. Like I mean, if I'm a conspiracy theorist at all, it's that like give us the tools. Like they're just taking away the tools. Like we just need the tools to like just be functioning people in the world.
Yeah.
Like we'd all like to understand these things, but I think it's really great. Like we're seeing more places like that pop up, and that should really be our goals: is help out these people in our communities. Like we're over the like survival of the fittest like bullshit. Like I
Yeah.
mean, just saying like it's stupid. That's like
Yeah.
caveman brain.
Totally. Yeah. I'm with you there, and that's really sort of the goal of the platform is to see how we can serve with helping people break over the fear of creation in terms of music, because there's a huge blocker in terms of that being limiting people in terms of uh, outletting their natural born gift of creativity, and everybody has it within them, but just at some point it just shuts off. So we just want to encourage people to keep that tap flowing and not shut off that faucet. um, with that, what advice would you give to young artists who look up to you and aspire to make their mark as an accomplished singer-songwriter like yourself?
It's all just honesty. I think just being true to yourself and I make your art. The my goal was never to make money playing music. Like it it was always just to I just wanted to make stuff. And that's really what we should all be doing. I see people do it every day. Like I liked coming home from work and working on a song. I
Mm,
liked doing that. I like building and then working construction with my dad and then come back home and I figure out how to make beats. It's
yeah.
that fills my cup. Like that is
Hmm.
my outlet. Honesty is key and just being true to where those melodies and those things that are in you come from. Don't be afraid of that. Like and don't be too hung up on it being you, you know? That's like have some humility
Mm,
and know where it comes from.
so good. Thank you so much for yeah, just the transparency and your honesty and just you're willing to give for that the main part of the interview. We lost Gina. I think her connection's poor, so I'm just gonna like go through her part. It's called Gina's rapid fire round, but we'll call it Elmo's rapid fire round.
Cool.
Just some fun questions that we ask every creator, and just to see what their take is on these questions. The first one being, what DAW do you use and why?
I use Pro Tools. Um, I I feel like everybody that watches me work on Pro Tools, they always go like, that's there's a quicker way to do that with Logic. There's a quicker way to do that with Ableton. It's just what I learned on, and I do believe in that. I've actually seen some really great creators. I believe like that's the first thing I learned on, and that's the thing I know. And I would say that with I mean, I could move the camera around this room, but like
Yeah.
the tape machine, I like,
Oh, you got one of those?
yeah, so like, this is what we use. Like, that's just what we use.
That's
That,
crazy.
and I play this bass, I play that keyboard. Like, it's all about knowing the program that you use. Like,
Hmm.
this is what you use. Like, just pick one and get to know it.
And go.
Hmm.
That's right.
Favorite plugins?
Man, it's the Sound Toys plugins
Okay.
are just kind of like I know it's like what people use. That's what everybody uses. Like I love using the Sound Toy stuff. I mean, all the Universal Audio stuff sounds great. Uh, Specifically, like I use the Echo Boy like the
Yes.
most. Like that. Like I just stack those things up. I mean, if I'm doing it analog, like it's. Can
Ooh.
we see that?
Whoa.
It's an Echo
That
Rec.
looks like a app. Oh,
Oh yeah,
Rimson
Benson
Echo Rec.
Echo Rec, baby.
That's sick.
So I've been using that since. There's probably a plugin for that somewhere,
Probably.
and if there
Yeah.
is, like mess with it. I like stacking delays and doing like triplet delay on like a quicker triplet on like a quarter note delay. Like I mean, I just mess around. I like lots of dub delay stuff.
Yes. Are you into the Valhallas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. Are you kidding?
What is a sound that always brings you joy?
Sound that always brings me joy would be, I mean, it's first is Francis's laugh. That always works.
Mhm.
There's like these, I can never get enough of like mallets and like
Interesting.
bell sounds. Like I really, really love, I don't know where that seeps in. I could probably find it if I sat here and thought, like, if I think about it. Um, it must come from like Bowie, like Labyrinth. Maybe it comes from
Oh
Labyrinth. Like
man,
it
yeah.
could come from that. Like I like percussive sounds on synthesizers. I like trying to recreate percussive like bell sounds and mallet sounds with synthesizers.
I remember back in the day, I don't know if you had a Korg Triton, but they had some pretty cool mallet sounds on there.
I've used them, yes.
Did you?
Yeah. It's funny. Like anytime I get onto any new keyboard, that's like the sound I look for.
Yeah.
Which so that must be my thing. Like I love percussive sounds. It's also probably why I'm drawn to organ, like real percussive, like organ playing.
Hmm.
Is there is nothing better in my mind.
Yes. Yes, I agree. How would you rank your music creator skill sets out of 10 for the following? Beat making.
God, I have to rate myself.
Yes.
Fucking 10, dude. I guess it's a 10.
Lyric writing.
Oh, I would say I'm like mid tier on lyric writing.
5.
Yeah, 5.
Sound design.
Pretty good at that. I would say like after being in a room with Bhasker, like you got to put yourself at like a 2. But like in the average room, like I usually get on the synthesizers and I create some pretty good stuff. Let's say like an 8 or a 9. I'm gonna go high.
Are you big on modular synths?
I mess with them whenever they're pulled out. Like I'm very much like, just so you know, like I'm not a technical whiz. Like I'm more of a like turn knobs until I find the
Yeah,
sound.
that's like me.
Yeah.
Cool. Gina, you're late. Okay.
I was
That.
here the whole time. I could watch you guys. I heard you guys throughout the whole interview. And apparently you guys couldn't see me at all, hey?
No, it
That's
looked like you're off.
crazy. Oh my God.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just doing your part, so don't
Absolutely.
worry.
I'm going to be a fan here. Okay, go ahead. Go do your thing. Okay, I'm going to be.
Mixing.
Mixing. Oh wow. No, I am low. Like I might be close to 0 on this. Like I might not even make the scale here. I just know that like I make a bunch of stuff and I give it to somebody and they go, "How did you end up here?" I go, "I don't know. Can you help me?"
Top lining.
God, you see, you're catching me right after I left us like an album with Jeff Bhasker. Like he writes the best
He humbles
top
you.
lines. Uh, you know what? I can do it. I would say like I'm probably like a 6 or a 7.
Music theory.
0.
Arranging.
Yeah, I'm up there on this too. Is this like okay? Can I just ask one question? Is this like
Sure.
between me and like the average person, or me and the average songwriter? 1 to 10.
It's just whatever you feel. Like there's no comparison or compare and contrast. It's just like how you feel about your own skills and abilities.
If we were making it competitive, who would I be against?
Oh man, see that it's crazy because when I ask this, like everyone's different. Like the range is insane. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, so yeah, there's no right and wrong.
So I'm thinking like average, like if I walked into the room with anybody, like where would I be like, okay, I feel confident like up here, like I'm above that, like I can get over here. Okay, so this
Awesome.
is which is this one, arranging?
Yeah,
Yeah. I feel like that's actually my best skill. So let's go.
nice.
Let's go like 9.
Sonic storyteller. What is your reaction or facial expression when you know you made some heat?
I think it's this. I think it's this because my band tells me you have the same look for everything. It's just that.
Nice. Hey, it's a nice mug.
Yeah.
It's a nice mug. When do you feel 100% happy with the song you made?
When it's released.
If AI technology was somehow able to take over our jobs as creators, what new career path would you choose?
Whoa. God, I guess I think I would do something with like masonry, like concrete.
Nice. For the early stage music creator who just scrounged up enough money enough change in their couch cushions for some food, what is the best way to add the most value to a fast food order?
uh, Man, I don't know if I have a trick for this. Um, you know what I just started doing is I asked for fries well done.
Really?
Yeah, just for fun. It works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't, but when it does, they're good.
So you've never tried the McDonald's cheeseburger with lettuce, tomato, and mayo before?
No,
Same price, but you get the added
no,
added
I
condiment.
get it, but like, no, we've never done that. I will tell you, I have a specific memory of us. There was a 2 Whoppers for $1 deal at Burger King when we were staying in Flint, Michigan on our very first tour. And guess who didn't have $1?
Uh-oh.
This band.
Oh
We had to
no.
play 3 more shows in Flint just to make gas money to
Yeah.
get to the next shows. Um, we went around town, like everywhere we could walk to. Like we were looking in the little like the vending machines, the like gumball machines, like things like that. We were just like looking for pennies, and like we eventually scrounged up enough in
That's
gutters.
crazy.
So yeah, also just looking for deals.
So those were full-on Whoppers, not junior Whoppers.
Was that like a "how old are you" question?
No, that wasn't,
I'm just
because
kidding.
I'm big on the junior Whopper. Only because like nowadays I'm a little older, so like when I eat a full Whopper, it shows on my gut. But yeah, so I'm all about the junior Whopper. But I know the junior Whopper, they had deals like this. I think maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah,
But now, yeah. So I'm just curious because 99 cents, $1 for 2 whole Whoppers. That seems like
they
a
were
pretty good deal.
they were full on Whoppers.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it
That's
was 15 years ago, or
yeah.
no, it wasn't. It was 20 years ago. Oh my
Okay.
god,
Oh my God.
that was 20 years ago.
Sorry, I'm just gonna say it's not that long ago, so it's okay, guys. You guys look great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
As
anyways,
long as
I'm
we
not.
look younger.
Yo, what is with that though? Seriously, like I can't eat a Whopper anymore. Like I could probably eat 2.
Yeah,
Like if we were like running around snowboarding,
yeah,
like 2 Whoppers, that's nothing.
I know. The world today.
But you,
The
you
world.
seem like you have one of those like body
My
types that
metabolism.
you can eat a lot and not show.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't show on your body. Like my brother's like that, but I'm not.
Oh damn! You know what? I can actually like pack it on pretty good.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
I did gymnastics, 10 years of gymnastics. I was like doing competitive gymnastics, and it's so funny when I gain weight. It all ends up in my like upper body. So I'm
Whoa.
just kind of like, yeah, I just
Like a
like look
stocky
bigger.
weightlifter. That's yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Cool. Okay, last question of the day. And again, thank you so much for just taking the time out. We had so much fun chatting with you today. The last question is, what's next for John Gourley and Portugal the Man? Anything you want to promote?
Wow. Anything I want to promote? It's Francis, like the francischangemylife.com. Like that's kind of like what we've been working on musically. It's everything. I actually like I kind of went through a we're gonna gloss over this, but I went through this like traumatic like moment where I broke my jaw just going into the pandemic, like right
Oh,
before the pandemic. Like I broke my jaw. I found out I had a break earlier in like my Alaskan like rallier years, like where we get into trouble, we jump off of everything and fight everything. And I had broken my jaw, pressure built up over all these years, and my jaw broke like right before the pandemic. So we were basically like, we were getting close to finishing the album 2019, 2020. And then my jaw broke, and it was like, I'm still rehabbing it right now,
Wow.
but it works again. And it's I mean, it was super painful, like touring in 2022. I was having visions, like we would be finishing up the set. So we're playing an hour, maybe an hour 15 every night. But the last like 15 minutes of the set, I had like visions of my jaw breaking in my head. I was just like,
Whoa.
whatever is happening inside my body is not good. But we finished the album that year, and I'm kind of just like I feel like I kind of found out what was happening, like physiologically, like in my body, like for all these years, like there was something happening that kind of it was a disconnect. So
Hmm.
in my writing, I'm just ready to write some like I want to write some like linear like prog, like I want to write some like kind of wild music. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
We're excited for you, man. Yeah, yeah, we're gonna root for you. We'll always be rooting for you, and we'll be praying for Francis and the foundation. If there's anything that the Sonically community can do, would it be to go to the site and just look through everything, and um, if they have the means to do it, to donate?
Yeah, just yeah, please like watch the videos. I think it'll take you on a journey to like other kids and other like things that you um might not see every day. And it's just I would appreciate that. Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, and thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Um,
much for joining us today. I mean, I was very much, I think I learned a lot today from you, and I'm sure the people listening have learned a lot about you and your process and the journey that you've been on. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts from Canada and all over the world. We thank you so much. Hope to see you one day too.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, text me
You.
next time we come through. Let's hang out.
oh, for sure.
Yay.
Vancouver.
Let's do it.
Yay.